Welcome to The Stacks, a podcast about books and the people who read them. I'm your host, Tracy Thomas, and today I am joined by Jemele Hill, writer for The Atlantic, former ESPN host and analyst, and the host and creator of the podcast Jemele Hill is Unbothered, which focuses on culture and politics in addition to, of course, sports. If you don't know her, Jemele is basically the first woman of sports, and she is someone whose work I have admired from afar for years. Jemele has a brand new book out, and it's called Uphill. It's a powerful memoir about her life of resilience following cycles of generational trauma, about her professional setbacks and public scandals. And today we talk about what it means to be a Black woman in sports, writing a memoir when you have a bad memory, and some of the biggest sports stories of Jemele's life. Remember, our November book club selection is Prison by Any Other Name: The Harmful Consequences of Popular Reforms by journalists Maya Shenwar and Victoria Law. We will discuss the book on November 30th with our guest, Mariam Kaba. Quick reminder, everything we talk about on each episode of The Stacks can be found in the link in the show notes. If you love the show and want more of it, head to patreon.com/thestacks to join the Stacks Pack. The Stacks is an independent podcast, which means I rely on listeners like you to make the show possible week in and week out. In addition to knowing that you're supporting one of your favorite podcasts, you also get perks like our monthly virtual book club, bonus episodes, access to our Discord, and more. If you'd like to be a part of this wonderful bookish community, head to patreon.com/thestacks. Thank you to our newest members of the Stacks Pack, Curran, Tanyuha Jagannath, Leah Kramer, Cheryl O'Toole, and Dave Dandelion. Thank you all so much, and thank you, of course, to the entire Stacks Pack. And now it's time for my conversation with Jemele Hill. All right, everyone, I am beyond thrilled today. I am joined by someone that I admire for her work and her talent, and someone who wrote a shockingly great celebrity memoir. I mean, I don't know if you'd call it that, but I call it that. It's sort of in between. Anyways, it's Jemele Hill, author of Uphill. Jemele, welcome to the Stacks.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. And I of course, being a writer, I pay attention to words. Shockingly good is what you said.
Well, because listen, I read these celebrity type memoirs a lot, and not everyone is a writer. So usually I just go in and I'm like, let's see what's going on. And in the first paragraph or the first page, I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do this. And I was super geeked about it. So I guess I shouldn't have been shocked because I follow you and I follow your work, but it's always a pleasant surprise.
I get it. But I'm also a writer by trade. I'm not a celebrity by trade. Right. So it is.
Right. I know. I should have known. I should have known it was going to be good. Anyways. Okay. In about 30 seconds or so, can you tell folks about your book?
So the title of the book is called Uphill, a memoir, and it's my personal story. And what I was kind of locked in on was generational trauma and explaining how the generational trauma in my own family had shaped me into the person that I am today. So it's a story of resiliency, resolve, perseverance, but I think it's also a story about how we cannot let shame define us, or really we shouldn't be ashamed at all, but we especially shouldn't let shame nor circumstances define us.
Something that you say early on that's a principle that's guided you in your work and in your life is or mostly in your work, I guess, is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. And that stuck out to me from jump. And I'm curious how you use that as a guiding principle. How do you check if you're doing it?
Well, being a journalist by trade, when I was kind of growing up in this business, if you will, that was a phrase that was repeated often. There was these certain principles, these core values that the profession was supposed to be about. I mean, this is not to say that every journalist is noble, but a lot of journalists were attracted to the profession for noble reasons. There was no promise of fame or that you're making a lot of money. You were literally doing it because you thought that it was important that our society have checks and balances, that there be a group of people that were able to hold the people in power accountable, able to make sure that the citizens' voices were heard. And it's an important and crucial element to having a democracy and a free press. And so that has been such a guiding career principle for me, because we need to challenge systems and structures. Otherwise, we see what happens when they go unchecked.
Yeah. You start the book as you start your life as a child, well, you actually start the book talking about with your mom as an adult, but then we kind of get into your life as a child and some of the things that you went through, and the complex relationships you have with your family members. And, you know, I think most of us know you from the sports world, from being a journalist, from ESPN, from your podcast. How did it feel to commit these words and these stories to the page, like, and in a book and in one place? Because, like, sometimes you might hear one of the stories on your podcast here and there, but like, it's all here, it's all together. Like, how did you get the confidence and the courage to tell this story?
I think I've always shown a kind of confidence and courageousness in writing that maybe I have not shown in real life, particularly as it relates to exposing myself and being vulnerable. And from a child, since I was a child, rather, that was always easy. It was always easier to write it than to say it, and sometimes easier to write it than to do it. And so I knew that considering a memoir is like almost like a personal statement, but much, much longer.
Yeah.
You want that statement to be as honest and as raw and as vulnerable as possible, because, I think this as an interviewer, sitting down with subjects, the ones I believe are the ones that are willing to be transparent. And so considering how I respond to that as a journalist when I'm sitting with a subject, there was just no way I was going to write this and not be brutally honest and not expose certain truths and expose certain complicated dynamics within my family. Because when you pick up a celebrity memoir, like I was, playfully ribbing you a little bit, but the gist of the game, especially if the celebrity is writing it, is that they're in some ways trying to make themselves look as good as possible.
Right. Yeah.
So it just, I felt like people would learn more almost from the warts than they did from the smoother parts of my life. And so I didn't want to put readers in a position where they felt cheated.
Yeah. Did you ever struggle, like, when you were telling a story and look back and go, you know what, Jemele, that's you're being too nice to yourself, or like you're sugarcoating this? Or did anybody else read it and say to you, like, there's more there?
Well, you know what? It's funny because so the book editor who wound up doing most of this, I had two book editors. One, she kind of started the process with me, but she wound up leaving the company. But she said something to me that was really interesting when I was writing about, after I turned in submitted the first draft, and she wrote, or in an email, she said this to me, is that when I was writing about my stepfather, James, she thought I was actually being really unfair to him. And she's like, she didn't use the word unfair. What she said was, I noticed that everybody else you're willing to give a lot more grace but him. You should ask yourself why that is, and then write about it as a part of how you want to describe your relationship. And I guess that was a really good seed for her to plant, because it made me then go back and think about the people I'd written about and say, am I being fair to this person? And everybody doesn't deserve grace. But one thing is for sure is that everybody does deserve fairness, right? And so that's why I think it's an important journalistic principle to have in general. But I was like, oh, everybody does deserve some fairness. So I just went back and combed through again to make sure everybody I was writing with, I wrote about them with a sense of fairness.
Did you have to prep anyone in your life about what you were going to say about them in the book or talk about, or was this stuff that you'd already sort of hashed out with your loved ones?
I had to talk to my mother about it, just because, needing to understand that what was going to be in the book. I didn't, fill her in on, this is how I'm writing it about it.
Right.
This is my perspective. I didn't go through it like that. I just wanted her to know this incident will be in here. This one will be in here. This will be in here. She read a very early copy, like an advanced reader copy of the book while it was still being edited. So it was, an opportunity that if she took issue with something, it could be changed. And because I write so extensively about her, I thought that was the least I owed her. Of course, my husband read an early copy of the book too, because I did not want him to be surprised by anything. And while generally he knows everything about me, it's like sometimes you never quite remember. It's like, did I tell him this or
Right,
did, you know,
right.
just, or he may know the general headline, but maybe not the whole story, And so, there's a difference between telling somebody that, oh, my mother and father were both addicts to, let me tell you about the time this happened. So I wanted to
Right.
make sure that, he knew and was comfortable with everything that was going to be in there. And probably, let's see, the only other person I talked to, well, it was a couple of people I talked to, some of which I can't name because they told me stories and I don't, where they are professionally, I don't want to compromise them,
Got
but
it.
just some colleagues of mine that used to be at ESPN about certain things that happened there because I wanted to make sure I remembered it the right way. I was like, this did happen this way, right? I'm not tripping, okay?
Right.
And so they were able to, help me verify some things. And my former co-host, Michael Smith, while he didn't read any advanced copy, but there was a incident that I wrote about in the book that I know was a sensitive one for him, an issue he had with a colleague that
Right.
became a very national story. And so I wanted to just say like, hey, I remember it happening this way. Was this the way that it happened? And by the way, I'm writing about this. And so if you feel a way, then tell me you feel a way. And he didn't. He was fine about it. But so it was a few conversations, but there's some people that I frankly didn't feel the need to have to let them in on the process. And writers, as you know, we're protective about our shit.
Right.
We are. And so you don't want to put yourself in the position where people feel like they have a say.
Right. Right.
It's a fine line. Like the people that are close to you, like really, really close. Like if my husband saw that I wrote about something, it was like, I don't know about that one. If it was in any way going to embarrass him or not be protective of our relationship, okay, that's another matter. But
Right.
You start letting people play editor and they think the story changes.
And they do.
Exactly. Then they want to like chime in with an opinion like, I didn't ask for your opinion. I just want to know, is this right or not? My perspective is my perspective. Just factually, am I getting everything right here?
It's interesting that you say that because I obviously do talk to a lot of writers and I love a memoir. So I have a lot of memoirists on the show and the scope of like, I didn't show anyone and I told no one anything to kind of what you're saying has been really interesting because I think maybe because I'm just so nervous. Like, I want to make sure everyone's happy.
No, you can never write a memoir with that idea because somebody is not going to be happy.
Yeah.
And
if you have a story worth telling, there's going to be some conflict.
If you get 100% approval from everybody, you did not write the right memoir.
Right.
And so, and that's not to say that you write things purposely to piss people off, but there's going to be people who feel like they should have been characterized different or they just will feel uncomfortable about the fact that now they really know how you feel, and so you have to be prepared for some conflict and some fallout, which I certainly am.
Yeah. One of the things you talk about in the book is how it's kind of like an offhanded comment, but it piqued my interest about how you have not a great memory. You don't remember anything is what you said. And you said, I think like Michael remembered everything and like every play and every this and that. And as a sports fan, I joke that I don't remember any sporting anything. Like I cannot, last year I went to a World Series game and I was saying to my husband, I cannot tell you anything that happened in the game that we went to. And it was my first and only time at the World Series. And it was like a big deal and I traveled and all this stuff. And I'm like, I just know we lost. I don't remember anything else. But I'm wondering how you navigate that because you're talking about all these little sporting events. And also, how do you write this book? What did you rely on to remember everything?
I would say I have a memory for useless things. Okay. It's like, why do I remember that? I don't even know. But I think when it comes to thinking about critical joints and junctures in your life, you remember those. Yeah. And one of the best pieces of advice I got as I was writing this memoir was from Rick Ross. And Rick Ross was working on his memoir when I interviewed him for the podcast. And he said that it was a good idea to kind of narrow your life down to 12 to 16 pivotal moments and organize it like that. And I can easily think of those moments. Right. But it was funny because as this book is, being read and people are responding to it, a childhood friend of mine, she reached out to me And she lived a couple doors down from my grandmother. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm so proud of you. And as my mother and I, we appeared on Red Table Talk, and she saw the episode. And she just thought about how proud of me she was. She was like, yeah, I remember when you used to spend the night over, my house. You were like the only kid that was allowed to, because my mother really liked you. And, you and I would talk about some of the issues you were having with your mom. And I was like, we did? I did not remember that at all. I was like, well, what was I saying? You know what I'm saying? So, it was just like, oh, okay. But it also helped that I still have a lot of my old journals as well from, when I was kind of coming of age. And even though that sometimes I wasn't very specific, I would just look at the timestamp, and I might have something as simple of an entry of, oh, I was really pissed off today when such and such didn't look at me in the hallway. And I was thinking, like, who is such and such? Like, I don't even know what this is. But, it sort of helped me tap into what were the emotions that were boiling inside of me as a kid. And even one of the stories that I tell in the memoir about how my mother read my journal, and then when she found the contents of it, which were not very nice to her, how she, beat the shit out of me, basically. Even when I wrote about that, when I talked to my mother about that incident, and we were laughing about it as we were talking about it. So it was really a happy conversation because, you laugh about ass whoopings much, much later, not in the moment.
Not at the time.
Not at the time. Not real funny, not comedic at the time. No. But anyway, she told me some things I said to her in the course of that argument, if you want to call it that I do not remember saying, that I was like, ooh, I see why you whoop my ass. Like, I kind of got
so
it.
funny.
So yeah, even though I can't recall everything in detail, it's like the major things I knew and felt pretty comfortable with. And even being able to go and ask my mother about it, or even like one of my friends, Kelly, who remembers everything. I was like, remember when that happened? Is this how it happened? I at least had the ability to do that with a few people as I was writing this.
Right. That's so interesting. I have a great memory for everything but sports. So it's interesting to think about writing hear about you writing a memoir.
I'm sure you might remember moments. Like, you may not remember maybe how, things happen, but you remember moments. Like, I'm sure you remember every one of Golden State championships they won.
So I do, but so for example, last night I said to my husband, I go, who did we beat last year for the championship? I was like, did we play someone, or they just let us have it? Like, I couldn't. And then it dawned on me that it was Boston. Yeah. But it's like one of those things, I think, because I remember like every little thing from every conversation with everyone I know. And then I think sports, I'm just like rooting and cheering. And like, it's a very weird, because I'm like your friend Kelly. I'm known for my memory. It's like what happened. And I'm like, oh, this is what happened. This is what you were wearing. This is the day of the week. This is the day, okay. You talk about the O.J. Simpson case as being this pivotal moment for you in your professional career. You wrote like one of your early pieces about it. I'm wondering, how do you feel like seeing the country through the lens of O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown maybe changed you as a writer, storyteller, or just as a young woman?
Well, I mean, it had such a profound impact on my professional career. I'll start there first, just because people today will not know what this is like, because I cannot imagine if a O.J. Simpson happens
with Twitter.
With Twitter, it would just
God.
Be. It's it's
unimaginable.
Even now, thinking about it, one of those y'all had to be there,
right.
to remember when, I guess, speaking of sports, when they broke into the NBA game to show O.J. in the Bronco, and everybody thought he was literally going to commit suicide on national TV. Like, it was real. Right. So that case was when I think it took journalism to an interesting place. One, it was the type of blanket coverage that was pretty rare. I mean, it happened. Certainly there were national incidents, but it showed, it kind of ushered in the 24-hour news cycle. It definitely ushered in our complete addiction to true crime.
Right.
To trials in particular. Because after that, the showing trials became a thing.
Right.
Because of the O.J. Simpson case, and the ratings were just outstanding. And I remember being at college when the verdict was read, and everybody in our newsroom and in our college at our college newspaper being gathered around waiting on this verdict. And I was managing editor then, so it was my I was the one deciding what the front page was going to look like, how many stories we're going to dedicate to it, and all of that. So professionally, it's just much more easier to remember. But then on a personal level, obviously, as I write about, one of the reasons as that case was unfolding that I wrote a extensive series on domestic violence is because my dear play aunt was brutalized, was a victim of domestic violence. And it was a very frightening to see her go through that. She was never okay. And it was it was really one of those early examples of how I saw that you can bring situations to light that are of massive importance to the society through a personal lens, even though I didn't write about my aunt in that story at all. But knowing what she went through and some of the obstacles she was facing informed my reporting. So it was like the first major piece of journalistic work I did in my career.
Do you, I guess this is sort of connected, because I think one of the things that makes you, I think, an important figure, if you will, in society is that you are a Black woman who is in the center of the sports world in some ways, and also in a world that is notorious for hating women and hating Black people in a lot of ways. And like, there's this dichotomy of like, Jemele Hill is who I look to for my sports things, but also Jemele Hill is receiving like blowback because of the optics of who you are. And so I'm wondering, like, how do you balance and push through and negotiate being a Black woman in a white man's space that is filled with Black and brown people of color who are the athletes and are the face of this industry? Which is, I don't even know if that's a clear question, but
no, I know what you're getting at, but there's a parallel example, I think. And I would say probably Black women's relationship with hip hop would be a pretty close parallel.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we all love it. We're huge buyers of it. The men, I'll just leave it to them. The men who are, male rappers, a lot of what they decide to rap about, topic matter, comes from our response to it. Now, we know that lyrics can be very misogynistic, downright crude toward us, and yet we still love it. And sometimes it does take a cost on us, or take a toll on us to wager, because sometimes we can certainly disassociate the music and see it as purely entertainment. But then there's also, I think, in all of us, if we're being truthfully honest, a part of us that feels humiliated by it in some ways. And so with sports, it's similar in the sense that a lot of times when you watch sports, you're sort of wagering your integrity. And right. it sucks because, when you're a kid, you don't think about these things. Like, when I was growing up and watching sports, I did not think about what kind of person an athlete was or how did they treat their family or, I didn't worry about their character or the integrity. I only worried about that in relationship to their availability and whether or not they can play.
Right.
That was it. And so something like what happened to Colin Kaepernick, I'm a 49ers fan. You're
As
a 49ers fan.
Yes.
Right. And even though the team itself did not put him out of the NFL, they were complicit in his career being taken from him. And so it's just, I mean, for a while, I didn't really feel good about watching them because of that.
Same.
Like this kind of...
I haven't fully gone back to football. I haven't been able to. I was at his first NFL start. That's a sporting event I remember.
See, you do remember
against the Chicago Bears. That was like a pivotal moment in my life because I was like, my quarterback is half Black and so am I. And like, it's Colin Kaepernick. Yeah. So
I find myself like sort of thinking about these things, and especially now that I'm, you're at an age where you do care more about how certain things make you feel. But what I've told myself in terms of my participation in sports and me watching it, I mean, I'm very entertained by sports. There's no doubt about it. But what I've told myself is this. My job for The Atlantic as a writer is to write about the intersection between race, sports, politics, gender, culture with sports. I can't write about that unless I watch it.
Right.
Okay. And somebody has to be watching it in order to do what I said earlier, hold the powers that be accountable. I need to be the writer reminding the NFL what they did to Colin Kaepernick. I need to be the writer reminding the NFL about the race norming that they willingly engaged in until recently, about concussions, about how they do everything to usurp, undermine players' power. I need to be the writer to do that. And to do that, I have to understand how the league works. So,
Right.
my participation is professional, but it's also, the other part too that I think about is when it comes to the players themselves, and they're the labor, and they put so much work and effort into being a professional, and they have committed themselves to this dream, sacrificed a lot, and what it's given them back is changing their changing entire generations of their family because of the money
Right.
they're able to make, because of how they're maybe able to live a much different life than they thought they would live. It's given them so many good things, and I feel like even if there's even if often sports flirts with, if not crosses the line into exploitation, the players deserve support.
Yeah.
They've done they deserve to have support.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide where I want to go from here. I feel like that's just like such a salient point. You know what? We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Valentine's Day is upon us, and I've got love on the brain. Love for books, duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to tracythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks. Okay. I want to talk about sports journalism. I am, as I mentioned, a sports fan. I love sports journalism. You talk about a bunch of people in your book that are people I've been fans of, like Sally Jenkins, Michael Wilbon. I'm a Tony Kornheiser fan. He's how I got into podcasting, listening to his radio show for years, though I don't listen anymore, but that's a different story. I want to know, so you were a sports news reporter, then you went to becoming a sports columnist. I'd love for you just to explain to people who maybe aren't like super into sports or journalism, kind of what the difference of those two jobs are.
Well, as a sports reporter, it's more of a nuts and bolts job in the sense of something happens, you report on what happened, why it happened, you talk to people, you churn out the story. If you're covering a team, as I did for 6 years, you are covering the ins and outs of that team. Who's injured, who's hurt, what's the team outlook, why did they lose this game, why did this player start, why didn't that player start, who are they recruiting, like all different types of storylines that are associated with how this team exists. And you don't opine on anything. So you're not
Right.
you're not everything is like fact-based, or even if you have a theory about why something isn't working, you find some evidence that can support your theory.
Right.
So it's very reported, it's very It should be pretty unbiased and always, of course, fair. Now, when you're a columnist, this is when you are taking the liberty to, generate your own opinion about what is right or wrong with this team. Is this player good or not? Like you're taking a stance about something. So the nature of it is much more personal because when you're writing for a newspaper and your picture is next to your opinion,
right?
People are going to begin to attack you when they don't like something. If you write that the Lakers are horrible, which they kind of are right now.
They are. After 4 games, they're the worst. They're 5-4.
They are. They actually. I mean, this is one of the worst 0-4 teams I've seen. That's for sure. They don't look good. But if you're a columnist writing for the LA Times, you have to be truthful about that and say this team is very poorly constructed. They're more than likely not going to even come close to challenging the Warriors for the West or frankly any of the other echelon teams. Right. And you have your opinion, but you do support it with facts. The proof is in knowing that they don't really have any 3-point shooters in a game that is now predicated on 3-point shooting. We know what's going on with Russell Westbrook. So these are the things you write and pontificate about. But bottom line, one is opinion based, one is just by the facts, ma'am.
Right. And how do you, this is a nosy question. How do you cultivate sources? Who are you talking to? You don't have to give away any sources, but who are sources? Are they players? Are they front office? How do you get them to trust you enough to do it? Because different journalists have different sources.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes a bunch of journalists have the same source. And by the way, in certain circles, I can tell exactly, I can tell based off the story with some reporters exactly who told them. I know exactly who did. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like such and such. Yeah, I knew it. So it's a constant, being able to develop sources is like a constant practice. I remember when I first started covering Michigan State football and basketball, and even though I had gone to school at Michigan State, which was an advantage for me. So I knew the terrain. I knew a lot of, gone to Michigan State, and I also had covered sports when I worked for the college newspaper. So some of the people that I met then were still there. And, you start taking folks out to lunch. Who does not like a free meal? Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So you take people out to lunch. And, one of the many tricks, so to speak, that veteran journalists taught me is that you begin to chit chat with people and talk to people when you don't need them. So that way, when you do need them, they won't feel like you only come around or you only talk to me when you need something. So
sneaky.
Yeah. I mean, it's a ton of sneaky reporter tricks. So there are many times where, and this more, it has to do with professional locker rooms, where you go in the locker room and, just to give people a better insight of how the access works, depending on what sports you are covering. Like in the NBA, I think the locker room is open 45 minutes, something like an hour to 45 minutes before the game. So that's your opportunity as a writer to go in there, talk to guys, just kind of get a feel of the mood and all this other kind of stuff. And usually that's when it's called, unless you have to have a deadline story, it's shoot the shit time. I remember in Orlando, when I was the columnist there, one of the players that I had a pretty good relationship with was Keon Dooling. The reason we had a good relationship is because we were shooting the shit during that pre-game locker room time. And it turns out we had something very interesting in common. We were both fans of Young and the Restless. So we would be talking about what was going on Young and the Restless all the time. I don't even remember how this even came up. I mean, I think it just came up in a conversation during Shoot the Shit time. And I was like, oh, you watch YNR? What you think about Sharon when she did X? And so every time I would see him after that, I'd be like, yo, did you see Thursday's episode? What?
Right.
But then when I needed something, when I needed a quote from him about something going on with the team, always willing to talk. Because I had established that rapport. And a lot of times, let's just say dissenting voices on the team make for great sources. Now, you have to keep in mind they have an agenda when they're doing this. Like if there's a guy who wants more playing time, he may tell you things about the starter about like, yeah, but they ain't tell you about how he missed practice a couple weeks ago with no excuse. Yeah, they haters, but use them to your advantage. Okay, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Or assistant coaches make great sources because they're not the head coach. So they don't really take any of the blame for anything. So they'll give you the insight on the team. Backup quarterbacks, they make great sources because they're backups and they see all the dynamics that are happening on the team. People, and sometimes sources, they try to woo you because they want a particular story planted in the media. My friend Tom Izzo, the coach of Michigan State, he was really good at this, is that when he was upset with his team and he really wanted them to respond to something, he wanted to challenge them, he had a way of planting within a narrative that the team wasn't working hard enough, or, they were soft, or, that he thought that they should be tougher. Had a great way of doing that. He would plant it with us when he was just talking to the beat writers, and, none of us were really writing anything. He's just shooting the shit. And then if they lose and one of us writes like, oh, Izzo's, the toughness is a question, blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as that story is written or that column's written, he come to the podium and be like, how dare anyone question my team and their toughness? And you're like, but you said, okay. And then he uses that to create a us versus them to get them to play harder because he's like, look, they're doubting you. They don't think you're tough enough and this and that. And we're like, man, this dude. Media 101.
I love it. I love it. It's so manipulative in the best way. I feel like the best managers and coaches do that though, right? Like they are constantly trying to figure out, how do I get that extra something from this player?
Trying to figure out how to push the team. Who else makes excellent sources, by the way, are support staff, team managers, administrative assistants, people. That's why I made it a point when I covered a beat to know everybody's name in the football office or everybody's name in the basketball office, so that, you never know what tidbit you could use for something. It doesn't always have to be nefarious or bad, but just something that might lead to you writing a good story.
Yeah. I love that. My other dream job is to be a journalist, though I have no interest in actually being a journalist. I just love journalists and I love stories from journalists and all of these things. I just love being on the inside, So one of the things you talked about, once you go to TV, so you're a journalist, you start like in high school, you're writing, college, right out of college, you're writing, you're reporting, you're hustling, you're moving around the country, you're hitting up these different, newspapers, working your way up. You get to ESPN, eventually you get on television. I don't want to spend too much time on television or Donald Trump or any of those things because I feel like that's what a lot of people know about you. And I think you're probably doing a lot of that on your press tour. So go listen to Jemele on other things. What I'm really curious about that you mentioned is that you said TV turned you into a girl. And you talked about how you were a tomboy and you weren't into those things. You were like, you go on TV and you're like, can people tell this is from Marshall's? Like these shoes are just like hand-me-downs from so-and-so. I don't know shit about makeup. Like I think it was Sage Steele is like telling you like, girl, you're looking pasty, like with her face in the background. I am so curious what you think about, could you have found the success that you found on television if you had stayed in your tomboy ways, given the time that you were coming up on TV at ESPN?
So I don't want to say all of that hinged on it, but as I wrote about in the book about how I hired an image consultant, a friend of mine, Erica, because she had been a longtime TV veteran. She was sort of transitioning out of the business, and so she had the side business of image consulting, and not just for TV people, but for people in the professional world, period. And she was very instrumental in me understanding that while you could sound really great and you could make salient points and have cohesive sound arguments about a variety of topics, you have to look the part. Mm-hmm. And there is a TV look that is widely acceptable and that people are comfortable with, and you have to fit within the scope of that. And so I'm not saying that I would have never been on TV again. But yeah, I think there is some question to whether or not, if I hadn't sort of looked the part, like what would that have meant for me? Because you have to, even though it sounds horribly superficial, I do, maybe not in the same way, maybe not with the same intensity, but I don't know that they're gonna let a man, be on TV all that much if they're always wearing wrinkled clothing. You know what I'm saying?
But
It's
they
at some
do
point-
let them on with those oversized suits and those giant tie knots.
Yes, I
I'm
mean,
like, what's going on, sports? What is the giant tie knot? Why?
they're not nearly as scrutinized as heavily
Right.
as women are. So I don't want people to think I'm making a false equivalency.
No,
I
of
am
course
not.
Of course
Because
not.
there's plenty of things that men can get away with on TV from an appearance standpoint that women absolutely couldn't. But they do want you to look polished, because the fact is that when you're delivering the news, delivering an opinion on TV, people are buying into who they think you are as much as they're buying into what you say. So, I mean, I had to upgrade. I mean, it's just that simple. It's like I had to reshape my look in a way, like make it a little softer. I mean, I had to do it in a way that was comfortable for me, so I still felt myself, but yet willing to grow and change to do something that I loved. And so I didn't really see it as me sacrificing any part of myself, because they were just aesthetic changes, and they weren't really, I think, that outrageous. It's like, okay, so making sure I wore accessories, and because Erica was always on me about wearing accessories. She got me out of wearing black to every television appearance. She was like, no, these colors really pop on TV. I mean, these are just sort of little things and tricks that at the end of the day are going to make you look good and make you better at selling yourself to the American public.
So interesting. I made me think about all the other women that are on sports television, and made me think about like how many of them also have like tomboy roots, right? Like I'm sure some of them do.
Yeah, some of them do. And but I don't know if anybody did to the degree of that I did.
Okay, fair.
But yeah, but some of them, but I do think media is kind of changing with that. Like I look at just style wise what anchors are wearing now, and I think there's a general, and I don't know if it was brought on by the pandemic or it was just trending this way, but wearing like jeans or sneakers on TV used to be considered a cardinal no. But I see it frequently now. Like the casual look is okay. I mean, some of it depends on like how you dress. I mean, people may not realize this, but sometimes with some shows or some networks, how you dress can sometimes be directly correlated to the type of show you're on and what time of day your show comes on. Because in the morning, like there's a different expectation when you're on a morning show. Like people expect your morning anchor to be, kind of jovial and happy and delivering you the news with a smile. So your personality demeanor has to be different. And so, there's ways you can still be yourself within what is the audience expectation.
I love this. I love this insight. Okay, one of the things we always talk about here is how you write. So how do you write? Where are you? How many hours a day? Is there music or no? Are there snacks and beverages? Are there rituals, candles, bath time, yoga? Like set it up. Tell us how you write.
So when I was writing this book in particular, I usually write, in general, I'll say, I usually write with something on the TV that is entertaining, but I don't have to pay attention to it. Okay. I mean, I can go in and out like, oh, that's interesting that happened, and then go back to writing. So I'm typically, during writing this memoir, there was, I had watched Grey's Anatomy years ago.
That's my favorite show.
Oh,
That and The Bachelor. Those are my top two.
So I watched it years ago when it first came out. And so I was pretty hooked for like 5 or 6 seasons. And then I just kind of lost track of it. And, it just wasn't a big deal anymore. I picked it back up. All right. Because it was perfect. It was like, it's very formulaic in a good way. And the formula is comforting. And so I wrote it. I wrote to it. Young and the Restless, of course. But Young and the Restless is my go-to for writing.
Okay.
Because it's soap operas, and then every now and again you look up and like, what? Such and such had a baby? And with such and such? Wow. Okay, let me get back into this. So it's usually that. And, or another one. Well, actually, I had to stop watching it while writing because it was really absorbing too much of my attention. So I couldn't write and watch it. I got into This Is Us during writing this book. And it got so emotional. I was like, I cannot write and do, and do this.
I watched like the first season and a half, and then I was like, I can't be here anymore. I just like it was too much for me.
But the storytelling's so good.
So good.
And the writing is so exceptional that it was really excellent. But it got to a point where that was too big of a distraction. So I had to just wait and do that at another time. But, I believe change of scenery helps writing. So I often kind of rotate in different places in our house. I mean, there was a part when I was writing this book, we were not in the new house that we're in now. So we had a spare bedroom, and I would write in there, and just because, we had Netflix and everything in the room, just go to Grey's Anatomy, let that roll, start writing whatever I need to write. And then, that's it. When we moved in the new house, it was even better because there were several rooms I could really rotate to. There was we actually, I could go in our office or be in the living room, or we have a very nice outdoor area. So we have a pool and a jacuzzi. So going out there to write as well, like next to that. So believe in change of scenery and all of that. Snacks, I'm a chip person.
Yeah.
When I write, it's like, something you can grab. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think what matters most is what I write to television wise.
Okay. One of the things I love food. Anytime anyone mentions food in their books or anything, it always piques my interest. I just want to note that you were a person who used to eat your steaks medium rare, and you've switched over to medium and medium well. And I've never heard that before. Everyone I know has gone from well done to medium rare. They've seen the light. They're happy. How did you go the reverse way? It's a nightmare for me.
Well, what it was, like my grandmother was a big believer in eating steaks medium. And so, I mean, she just thought you were a heathen if you ate it well
yes,
done. Like that.
That's me.
And you eat it well done?
No, I think it's a heathen thing. I'm on the
yeah.
rare side. I'm medium rare on the rare side.
Yeah, something's wrong with you.
I'm looking for alive cows.
Alive cows. So I gravitated over because I noticed if you say medium well or medium plus, you get kind of right where it's supposed to be. Because I feel like if you tell a chef like, hey, make this medium well, they'll actually make it medium. Oh. So it's like, so you go up, so they'll come down. You know what I mean?
I go down so that they'll stay down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I ask for it medium rare, I mean, I'm sure there'd be parts of the steak still quivering. So it's like, right. You know what I mean?
And I'll take it from you.
Yeah. If I wanted it medium rare, I would just ask for medium.
Yeah, I see. So you have a podcast now, Jemele Hill is Unbothered. How does that compare for you from sports journalism writing things? Like, do you prepare differently? Are you thinking about things differently? Like, how are you approaching podcasting? I know you did it before. I know you did His and Hers, but now you have your own show. What's that like?
I mean, I put a lot of extensive research into it, just in terms of like trying to figure out, especially since I'm typically dealing with people who are big newsmakers, you have to figure out a way, and it's a challenge, and it's very thrilling for me to figure out a way to talk to them about something differently than they've been talked to about it before. Like, taking this interview, for example, as you said, like when you're on a book tour, like you're asked literally the same question 700 times. And so I appreciate this conversation because you've already asked me at least 10 questions I haven't been asked yet on this tour.
Dream.
So, yeah. So I try to do the same thing. It's like not ask them the same question. And if I do have to ask a question, just because sometimes it just requires getting an answer, even if it's about the same thing, then I will ask them in such a different way that hopefully it leads to a different answer. And that comes through exhaustive research, which for me includes, I look at interviews of theirs in stages. Like, oh, what's the interview they may have given when they were just a couple years into their acting career? What's the interview? What did they sound like 5 years after that? What did they sound like 10 years ago? What did they sound like, a couple months ago? Just to see what their evolution actually is. One of the big reasons I gravitated right into podcasting after leaving ESPN is because I missed the intimacy of the interview. And when you're working in daily television, and even a lot of times when I was writing for publications, you may have like 5 or 10 minutes with somebody. In TV, you don't even have that. You have like maybe a 4-minute segment with somebody. And being able to get an hour of somebody's time is not easy, but it's worthwhile. And so I wanted to just sit down and just have these, engaging, compelling conversations with people whose journey I think a lot of people wanted to hear about. So what I love about podcasting is that it just creates this intimacy between you and the interviewer. And so I think I'm able to get much better stuff than, if I sat down and did like a TV interview with them.
Yeah, that's what I like about it too. I only have a few more questions, one of which I hope no one else has asked you before, which is what we ask everyone here. What is the word you cannot spell correctly on the first try?
Oh, conscience.
Conscience. Impossible. That's a really hard one. I love it.
Easy. Oh, and defibrillator. Can't spell that to save my life.
Are you spelling it a lot? Does it come up for you a lot?
I mean,
defibrillator?
Whenever it comes up, I promise you I have to look it up every single time. I'm like, is it D? I'm always missing something, missing some letter, or I got too many L's. Like, it's always something.
I'm a notoriously terrible speller, so every word people say, I'm always like, what? But defibrillator I can't even say it, so I definitely can't spell it. I'm like, is there an R there somewhere? Like, what's happening?
No, it's crazy how certain words like you're just blinded to, and not just for the rest of your life. You're just like, I can't spell. Why do I not know how to spell conscience? I don't know.
I can't spell recommendation, and I can't tell you how many times I have to spell it because I'm always giving a book recommendation, and I'm like, can't tell ya, couldn't help. Okay, this is sort of like a sportsy moment, but not exactly. But everyone in sports loves a ranking. What are the top 5 sports stories of your lifetime to you?
Oh, man. That's crazy. All right, I'm gonna just go with what immediately
comes to mind.
Yeah, you can just go with LeBron James returning to Cleveland. LeBron James going to Miami.
Okay.
you can say that too. Gosh, I know that I'm gonna miss something so freaking obvious. Well, I mean, I would say that I'd put up in there maybe like the start of the WNBA, just because nobody ever imagined that there'd be like a women's professional sports leagues generally haven't done well. Michael Jordan retiring and unretiring. That was definitely a big one. You could definitely put the O.J. Simpson story in there, but I was like, is that a sports story?
Yeah, it is, I think.
Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was so huge. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was,
troubling.
I was at ESPN, obviously, when that happened, and he's from Bristol, where ESPN is located. So to see the cops and the media attention swirling around Bristol, like it was just so bizarre. But those are just some that kind of come to mind, and I hope people realize the question you asked. You said in my lifetime.
Yes,
so
I said.
I know there have been much bigger stories, but
yeah,
but I wasn't alive when Muhammad Ali decided not to go to the Vietnam War.
Right. Last 2 questions. One of them I ask everyone also is, for people who love your book Uphill, what are some other books that you might recommend to them that are in conversation with your work?
I would say Viola Davis's memoir.
So good.
It's so very good. And I would encourage people to listen to the audiobook because she does it. Oh, it's incredible.
Do you do your audiobook?
I did my audiobook, and
I had to read your book before it had come out, so I wanted to listen, but I might go back and listen.
Well, the audiobook experience is very unique. I'll say that much. And it took me a few weeks to do it because there was some revisions and this and that. But it's such a weird experience because if you hate the sound of your own voice as much as most people do, it can be very grating. So I thought that the Viola's book was quite good. Another one that I didn't read this year. I read it last year, I think it was Ya Jesse's Homecoming.
Yeah.
She is just, oh man, really just a gifted writer. Mm-hmm. Oh, that reminds me, another book that I read, and I think I read this book before the Viola Davis memoir, Night Crawling. Layla Motley. Like
Oakland.
I mean, Oakland in the house. Like I cannot believe that she actually wrote that at such a young age.
I know.
That young woman is brilliant. I mean, that everybody I've recommended that book to has immediately hit me up and said thank you because it's so powerful. So yeah, Night Crawling was definitely one.
Layla came on the show this year, and we had Ya on in 2020. So both people who I love, whose work I love, but Layla, she's so funny because she's like, I don't want you to think of me as exceptional. I'm just like every other 16-year-old writing a novel. I'm like,
no, you're
bitch,
not.
You're exceptional, okay?
Exactly.
More people can be exceptional, but you also are. That's what I told her. I was like,
yes.
Very sweet, but let me tell you, as your elder, you're exceptional. Keep it up. Last question for you. If you could have any person, dead or alive, read this book, who would you want it to be?
Wow, what a question.
Just end on a bang.
Well, maybe it would be, and this is always dangerous to do, is like you don't want to have the person, it's dangerous because if you have the person to read your book who maybe changed your life or something about you because of something they wrote, that's a pretty high bar. And if they don't like it, then I'd just be forced to cry and in a in a puddle of my own insecurities in the fetal position. So, but I'm going to say Nora Zale Hurston because Their Eyes Were Watching God is probably my favorite book of all time. And during the pandemic, I mean, I've read this book a few times, like at least 4 or 5 times, but I never listened to the audiobook. And I was very curious as to what it was like and everything. I believe it was Ruby Dee who did her audiobook. And it was exceptional. So, yeah, I would have her read it and just pray she like it.
Yeah, I love that answer. All right, folks, Jemele's out of here. But first, let me remind you, the book is called Uphill. You can get it wherever you get your books, audiobook, physical, ebook. Also, you can find Jemele on her podcast. Jemele Hill is Unbothered, which is on Spotify. And she writes for The Atlantic, a subscription that I highly value. One of my favorite places. I get the print and everything. Love it so much. It's where all the smarties go. So if you want smart sports things, find Jemele over there. Jemele, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. This was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And everyone else, we will see you in the stacks. All right, y'all, that does it for us today. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, of course, to Jemele Hill for being our guest. I'd also like to thank Carolyn O'Keefe for helping to make this conversation possible. Remember, the Stacks Book Club pick for November is Prison by Any Other Name by Maya Shenwar and Victoria Law, which we will discuss on November 30th with Miriam Kaba. If you love the show and want inside access to it, head over to patreon.com/The Stacks and join the Stacks Pack. Make sure you're subscribed to The Stacks wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're listening through Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to leave us a rating and a review. For more from The Stacks, follow us on social media at The Stacks Pod on Instagram and at The Stacks Pod _ on Twitter. And check out our website, thestackspodcast.com. This episode of The Stacks was edited by Christian Duenas with production assistance from Lauren Tyree. Our graphic designer is Robin McCrite, and our theme music is from Tagira Gis. The Stacks is created and produced by me, Tracy Thomas. I hate to break this to you, but the holidays are coming up and it's time to start thinking about gifts. I know. What the hell? I personally want to avoid the boring, basic, and bland. My loved ones deserve extra thought and care this year because this year has been a dumpster fire. So I'm turning to Uncommon Goods to help me find interesting, exciting gifts for the people I love the most. They've scoured the globe to find thousands of unique, meaningful items that you can't find anywhere else. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade. We all know I love my shower steamers and bath bombs, but they also have tons of items for your kitchen, bar, your jewelry box, and even your art collection. Check out their stocking stuffers. They've got books, holiday decorations. You won't run out of great finds on their site. There's truly something for everyone on your list. Shopping at Uncommon Goods means you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Yay. Heads up, their products are often made in small batches, so make sure you head there now before they sell out of everything good for the holiday season. With every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $2.5 million to date. So maybe, since it's for a good cause, I'll add something to the cart for myself. Just to be a good person. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/thestacks. That's uncommongoods.com/thestacks for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.